Hi everyone, this is Antoine. Today we have a packed agenda. We're going to be using our coding agent to set it up for success with a ton of Salesforce best practices, how to build on top of Salesforce, on top of the platform. And we're going to vibe code our way through it and see what kind of application can we create, can we package it, are we ready to publish our new intellectual property and $1 million idea on the App Exchange. So I'm going to be using Cursor AI. There are plenty of coding agents out there. I happen to have this one. So today we're going to be using Cursor AI, and in future videos, we're going to be switching between them. If you look at Twitter X, there's a fierce competition going on between coding agent. There's a lot of opinions out there. If you have a favorite one or some content that you'd like to see, please share it in the comments below. What we're going to be doing today, is going to be looking at Cursor, have a very fast, walkthrough on what it is, because you have a gazillion videos out there that are talking about this in depth. We're going to be looking at how to set Cursor for success with a Salesforce project. So I'll share a couple of ideas I came up with. And then we're going to vibe code. We're going to use Figma to just ideate and think about a little app that we can create. We're going to ask Gemini to kind of structure our project, and then we're going to leave Cursor and see what I can do. We're going to try to build this little application, and if everything goes well, package it and deploy it. So let's get to it. I'm starting my journey in my terminal because what I want to do first is create a folder. So let's go. We're going to create a folder especially for this project, and let's just dive into it. All right, in it, I'm gonna open a completely empty Cursor AI. So I wanna, on purpose, kind of scratch everything that I had done so far so that if you're starting as well, you can use those best practices. Are they the golden rule? Probably not. If you have opinions on what I'm doing, please share them below. This is really a constantly evolving environment. So if you have some ideas, please share them with the community. So what I'm going to do first is just to show you what it's about. So Cursor AI is a coding agent. It's a fork from VSCode, so it's a development IDE. Let me make it a little bit bigger so that everyone sees. And I can just like in any IDE start building things so I have my project.py. Oops. If I want to start, building something in Python, and I'm starting to type and see Cursor kind of constantly look at my code and started some smart auto completion. So yeah, sure. I want to start my I = 0, and right as I'm typing, Cursor is looking at my code, at all my files, and try to come up with what I might be intending to do next and suggest that directly within the IDE. Awesome, fantastic. We won't be using that so much in this video today, because what we're going to be spending the most time on is the agent. And in the agent, it's your typical Gen AI UI that you've experienced so far, with the ability to just ask questions without asking Cursor to act on anything. But that's is going to be a way that we're going to plan for our project. But then we're going to hand it over to the agent that will be able to interact, build file, write code, and do fantastic thing, and hopefully get us to deliver a great little project in no time. All right, one thing that I want to do is to make sure that, because it's a fork of VS Code, I'm making the most of the VS Code extensions. So because we're a Salesforce focused developer, we're going to ask our agent, what do we need? I am a Salesforce developer focused on building on top of the Salesforce platform. What VS Code extension could be helpful? And please install them not on VS Code, but on Cursor AI. Let me reread what I just dictated, because the macOS dictation is throwing me some curveball sometime. All right, what VS Code extension could be helpful? And please install them not on VS Code. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to remove that part because I first wanna ask this general question, right? I don't know what Cursor is gonna recommend, so I wanna make sure that I pick and choose what I'm about to install. All right, please install only the Salesforce extensions, not the other ones that are not official Salesforce extensions, but install them on Cursor AI, not on VSCode. I would like you to directly execute those commands as an agent. All right, let's see. Yay! So my agent, this is my dictation, it's not stopping, oops. All right, let's see what my agent installed. Hey, go back, remove this filter. Here you go. So my agent, without me having to actually do anything beside asking questions and asking the agent to act, installed pretty much all the extensions that Salesforce made available for VS Code. Fantastic. We're going to be needing that in this project. So this was the first part. Now, extensions were something that we already had available in VS Code. We made them available in Cursor. Awesome. Now there's a couple of things that are more specific to Cursor. Let's take a look at two things. First, the rules. So Cursor is using some large language models. We actually can, pick and choose which one we want to be using. There are plenty of different models to tap in. If I look at the settings and they list all the different models that we have access to. There you go. So those are the ones that I have enabled just by default, but they have a gazillion models that you can use as part of Cursor AI directly through them, or by specifying your API key using your direct relationship with the LLM providers. But large language models are being trained on a subset of the internet, right? Which will include some Salesforce best practices, but plenty of other things related to development that sometimes may be confusing for a coding agent on how to design something that is specifically built for Salesforce. So I thought about taking advantage of Cursor rules to make sure that we stay on track and that we have up-to-date information. Those rules are going to be either some general rules that Cursor will read and take into consideration with every single thing that we are asking the agent, or rules that will apply only in specific cases. But in order to design those rules, I wanted to tap into AI as well. So let's jump this time to Gemini. We're going to be using Gemini to do that. Cursor has some guidelines on how we should design rules. So I took those rules and I created teeny bitty Cursor gem that is let's just dive into it. That is simply taking all the rules that I've put into a Google Docs and then has this super simplistic prompt to design a rule that is following those Cursor best practices. So nothing overly fancy. Now, what I want to do is to make sure that Cursor is thinking about building applications like a Salesforce developers. And in order to do that, I'm going to be leaning on the Salesforce documentation. So plenty of different documentation to look into. The two ones that I picked are the Salesforce DX developer guide, which will give us all the know-how on how to use the command line tools and this type of things, as well as the documentation that is more focused on partners and especially will touch base on 2GP packages, how to package applications. So what I'm going to do is to download a big PDF of each one of those documentations. Let's do the same for the second one. I have my two PDFs and I'm gonna use them as sources within Gemini. Where did Gemini go? And simply share those, so SDX dev and the package development. All right, so that's one. Let's upload the second one. Let me make sure that, yes, I've sent two different ones. I thought that I had sent the same one twice. All right, great. So now I am in my cursor rule gem within Gemini. I've uploaded my two documentations, and I'm gonna ask Gemini to help me out. Come on. I don't know if you've noticed that, but Gemini is doing that on loop. It just doesn't want to use my microphone. Here we go. Gemini, please use those two documentations to create some rules that Cursor AI will be able to follow to be a very good developer building Salesforce applications on top of the Salesforce platform in order to publish them on the App Exchange and the Agent Exchange. Let's proofread what came out of course. The dictation started at the wrong time. All right. So let's see what Gemini come up with. All right, awesome. So looks like Gemini created pretty interesting rules in different categories, foundational principles. I'm quickly zooming through it. Great. Packaging information suite, Apex, specific rules, some about the Agent Exchange. Fantastic. Configuration file standards, yay, scratch org information, fantastic. So you know what? I'm gonna copy all of that and head back to Cursor. We're back in Cursor. Now let's ask Cursor to create its own rules based on what Gemini came up with. Using all the information below, I want you to create each one of those files and copy exactly the code snippets the way they are. And let's copy past everything and see what happened. Awesome. So we do have our rules created. Let's take a quick look. So if I look at the one about Agent Exchange, fantastic. And it's using apply intelligently. With Cursor, you can decide when and how those rules are being called for. I'm just going to let the agent call those rules when the agent feels like it needs it. So let's see in the settings if everything looks right. Now I should have all my rules. Yep, defined. Awesome. And I see that the project setup is on always. That's okay with me. Fantastic. So we now have a Cursor that is ready and wired. So with this base knowledge that will enable it to be more efficient when working on the Salesforce platform. Another thing that you can do is to load the documentation itself as part of the context window. It probably will bloat a little bit the LLM that you're about to use, but hey, let's try it out. So we're gonna add a new document. For that, I'm gonna head back to all my documentations, the one that we had used for our Gemini prompt, and use this very same PDF and simply load them into Cursor as part of the context. All right, so this is going to be, which one did I load? This is the DX, SFDX guide. Awesome. And we're going to also add a new doc. This time we're going to load, which one was it? The one that is specific to partners, that is focusing on working on 2GP packages. Add new doc, this new PDF, Salesforce Partner 2GP, just so I can recognize it. And so now we can add them directly within the agent's context. So if I want the Salesforce DX guide and the Salesforce Partner 2GP, this is going to be part of the prompts that I'm sending. So again, might bloat the LLM with too much context, too much tokens as part of the context window, but we'll give it a shot. Awesome. So what's next? We also want to be using MCP because we want to take advantage of this technology by using two MCP that I think are going to be very helpful here. All right, so I have my MCP already set up. I have a GitHub MCP that is going to be using a new token that I need to bring up. Here is my new token. Hopefully it should be expired or deleted by the time you see this video. And the Salesforce MCP. So this is the Salesforce CLI MCP that will allow your coding agent to get some Salesforce superpowers and be able to execute some commands with a lot more precision. So let's look back at what we have here. No, not working. Is Docker running? No, Docker is not running. Please hold. All right, Docker is running. So if I reload that, I should have my tools. So the GitHub MCP comes with a gazillion tool, which trigger a little alert message in cursor saying I have too much tools to deal with. So I kind of stripped it down and I only kept the ones about context so that GitHub knows who I am and everything related to the repo so that we can push things directly to our repo. Awesome. Let's get going. So now that we have our MCP set up, we do have our cursor rule, it's going to be time to build our solution. But one thing that I wanted to mention is a little call to action. Those rules that are created are generated by Gemini. They may or may not be all right. Time will tell. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention is that as you experiment, you're going to fine tune those rules. Every single coding agent has this type of ruling system to make sure that it gets as accurate as it needs to be for your specific project. Well, there's an initiative that I wanted to highlight that might be very helpful for the entire community. We now have a repo that I'll be sharing in the description of this video, where we invite every community member to share their best practices when it comes to rules that you're using within your coding agent for your Salesforce project. So make sure that you have this repo on your radar. There's not much in it right now, but please feel free to contribute and share your best practices with the broader community. Now it's the time for me to remind you to please like and subscribe. This would be incredibly helpful. All right, back in Cursor. What I want to make sure is that I'm sharing those rules that we created with you on a repo. So let's do that. Create a Readme file that describes the Cursor rules that we are about to commit to a GitHub repository using GitHub best practices when it comes to Readme files. All right, let's see what this Readme file looks like. Can I preview it? Yes. All right. Let's see. Remove mentions of npm package. Remove the git submodule part as well. Change the licensing to Apache 2. Great, so we have our README and now let's get ready to push it to GitHub. Now I want you to initialize Git on this project and push it with a commit message that summarizes what we've done so far to the following GitHub repository, repo. All right, awesome. So we now have everything that should be within our Git repo. Let's double check that. Awesome, all the rules are here. I'll make sure to share the link to the repo if you're interested in looking at those rules. Now let's review what we did. We discovered Cursor. We loaded Cursor with some extensions to help our Salesforce development. We created rules based out of the documentation on Salesforce DX and Salesforce partner documentation around packaging and 2GP packages. We implemented those rules in Cursor. We also set up 2 MCP servers for GitHub and for Salesforce DX. Now it's time to vibe code our application. But now that I'm looking at the length of this video, this is going to be for the next one. So stay tuned.